Welcome back to another edition of Fly Tying for Beginners with Jim Misiura. Today we're going to tie a wet fly, and that wet fly is going to be a blue dun. This is one of the first, blue duns are one of the first mayflies you use in the springtime. It doesn't necessarily represent anything, but because of the color, it works good. In the spring, in the early months, the mayflies tend to be very drab color, browns and grays, and it's not until later in the spring that you start to get color. Like the sulfur is one of the first ones that really have color, and then of course you got things like green drakes or light Cahills, pale morning dun, pale evening dun, things like that have more color. But in the early season, the mayflies are all they're dark. So the materials we're going to need, of course, we need a hook. I have a wet fly hook, and this is a number 16 wet fly hook. We're going to need blue dun hackles, and when you say blue dun, blue is kind of a misnomer there. Blue dun could be, this is a light blue dun here, and it's more of a gray color, a dun color. Here's another feather. I'm going to use this. We're going to use one, the large one. We want those long hackle fibers for the tail, and this one we're going to use for the throat, or the hackle up front for the under hackle. The wings are going to be, you want a left and a right matched pair of either Mallard Quill or Goose Quill, but you want a nice slate color, a nice darker like slate color here. I'm going to use my Snow Goose quills. They're nice, kind of a slate, dark blue dun or slate color. And then of course the dubbing, and for the dubbing, I'm just going to use my Adams gray dubbing, and this is just super fine. Now with this fly, it's a wet fly, and so you could actually put a couple of wraps of lead on there if you want. Get it through the surface and maybe get it a little bit deeper in the water column if you'd like. But I'm not going to use that on this. I'm going to use gray thread, and this is 16/0. And the thing with thread, when you're first beginning, of course you're going to have to use a heavier thread, because like I said in my last video, when you're first beginning, you tend to pull a little bit too hard, so the lighter thread doesn't, it'll break on a lot of beginners, or you're quicker. But you want to get down to, you want to use the thinnest thread that you can manage without breaking. All right, we're going to start off by putting a base of thread down, and I wrap the thread around my finger there, and it makes it easier to break off when I'm at the end. We're going to wrap the thread around itself, of course, and then hold that thread at about a 45-degree angle, and you could go quickly and get tight wraps, and also get it done fast. We're going to come to just inside the hook point. Now, because it's wrapped around my finger, I can break it off very easily. There we go. Now the first thing we're going to put on is the tail. And we're going to take our tail feather, and I'm going to widen this out a bit. We're going to take our tail feather, and you can see through it. You can see the web in there, but you want a lot of the you want to use the long thin ones. So if your web has enough of long thin on the end of it, you can use those. And this one actually does, because this is a size 16. But ideally, for tails, you want those nice, sharp, long, stiff hackles, hackle barbels. So I'm just going to take this. Of course, I'm going to stand it up at that 90 degree. You can just run your finger down from the top to the bottom and grab a bunch right there, and that's going to, when you pull them off, they're going to be aligned. Now I could go ahead and measure the length that I want. Take this, we want that tail to be no more than the length of the hook shank. So right there I'm going to, but I'm going to trim these off before I tie them on. Give it a loose loop and give it a couple more tighter loops there. Just 3 or 4 loops is really all you need. You can take the thread and go under the tail one and then back right on top there, and you keep that nice and straight. And now we're going to take our dubbing, we're going to take our Adams Gray Superfine, and this again, you don't have to use Adams Gray Superfine, you can use a gray Antron if you'd like. Or you could use a gray Awesome Possum if you want a little bit of a more spiky one. We're going to turn our hook upside down, and I spread that little piece of dubbing there, and then attach it at the top, and then you can pull it down and attach the bottom, and my middle is still open. And go ahead and you can just go ahead and finish that up. Right up. Now if you find yourself that you're a little bit away from the tail after you put the dubbing on, you can go ahead and put one wrap underneath the tail again with the dubbing. Then you ensure that you've got dubbing right back to the tail. You don't have a space. Go ahead and wrap this. There was a little spiky piece of hair or something in there, must have picked up from a different fly. And we're going to add a little bit more of my Adams Gray on there. And again, very small amount of dubbing. I believe I've said it in the past, you want this to, your dubbing should like float in the air if you let go of it. That's how little you, that's how small of an amount you want to use, because you can always add more. Now we're going to go ahead and wrap this. That was a little bit thin right on the end there. You can actually go ahead and make a taper there if you have it. If you have a little bit long of a noodle. I'm actually just going to put a little bit more on there. I want to get a couple more wraps. We want to end the dubbing about maybe 1.5 eye lengths from the eye of the hook. That when I wrapped on so tight, I can't move it. Go ahead and kind of build that up a little bit. Just, there we go. We came up just a little bit. And if you happen to go too far, you can always just take your thread and go over that dubbing a little bit. Now I'm going to take my hackle, my throat hackle, and for this one you want a softer one. You actually want the webbier stuff. But that's kind of a little bit hard to find all the time in the correct size. But I'm going to go ahead and give this a crew cut. Oop, I dropped it. There we go. Hold it in this direction. going to give that crew cut. That's a little bit large there, so I'm going to trim that down till I only have maybe 2 or 3. That is better. And this one, we don't need to worry about leaving one of the barbs exposed because we kind of want them to go back. We're going to tie that in with 3 or 4 wraps, and we could go ahead and wrap this. We're only going to put a couple of wraps on there, 2, maybe 3. Go ahead and put my hackle pliers on there. There's 2 wraps. I'm going to go that last one. This is almost a dry fly. Right now this probably would float like the dry fly. I'm going to go ahead and break off that excess or stem, and now I can wrap back. I got some hackle sticking forward there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bodkin again, go give it a double half hitch, and you see I actually went back on it slightly, and that's going to push the hackles to the back, swept back position. Clean that head up there a little bit. Whoop. There we go. Just use my fingers to sweep that back. Clean that head. Now we got that hackle swept back. Now we're going to take our Mallard Quill or Goose Quill, and we have those 2. We have the left and the right, and you can see they have that natural curve if you look at them there. And we're going to, when we tie them in, we're going to want them to be like this. So I'm going to go ahead and size them, and this one I can actually put it in here, touch the shank and poke it through. Should have probably done this before I put any dubbing on there. And then we have them, the 2 slips, we could just trim them off. Set that aside. Now we're going to put them back to back, and you see that natural curve on there. You want that to be sloping down in the back. So I'm going to take them, and you want that to be just into the tail. I'm going to hold these here. I'm going to zoom back in for you. We're going to just bring that right back into the tail, just slightly. We're going to give it a soft loop, pinch it between your fingers, then pull it straight down, and you're going to see the fronts lift. And I actually felt the backs lifting slightly. Give that a couple of soft loops. You could secure that a little bit more with another wrap or 2. There we go, get that nice and tight on there. Then take that and trim that off nice and close. And then we can form our head. Now, if you only have black thread, that's probably okay. On this, it's going to be a sweeping fly. You cast this across stream and let it sweep with the current. as if it is coming to the surface, an emerging fly. That's what wet flies represent. I got one little spot there I can't get. Now I'm going to take my whip finish, put the hook over the thread, go around the camel hump, and then turn your whip finish up. And here we have the X. Bring that X down and do your turns. Take it off the camel hump, pull your bobbin until the hook meets the shank, and pull the hook out. Take your poke and snip. And I got one hair, or one piece of hackle sticking up there. There we go. Then we're going to take our head cement, clean your brush off, and then you can go ahead and put your head cement on the head. This is wide open, so I went all the way around with it. I hope that you learned something from this video. I hope that you would subscribe to my channel. Please refer me to your friends. Please visit my sponsors. Let them know I sent you. Leave comments, questions, suggestions. If you'd like to purchase this or any flies that I make, go to etsy.com/shop/theflymanjim. And if you don't see it there, just tell me what you want with a message and we'll figure it out. And most of all, thank you very much for watching my videos.